Well, welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with RokoM Michelle. And this week, it's going to be on the power of trust. I recently read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And when I learn something, I'm not going to impose on somebody else. All of a sudden, then I start seeing where it shows up in other things. So that's where this topic came from. We have a few quotes. There's one of them I'm going to kick us off with. Is the key ingredient to building trust is not time, it is courage. And my thoughts on that are, and if you can relate to this and you've been in a toxic work environment or whatever, fear-based organization, is that if there isn't trust, right, it takes courage to step into something, to be vulnerable, to be the first one, to start establishing those connections and to dip your toe in the water, if you will. But I think that is it's foundational, literally foundational to building effective teams and to showing up. I'm going to go back to authentically or anything else that we've talked about before. So what are your thoughts, Roko?
Yeah, for me, it's that trust is foundational. And when there is a trust issue, and we've talked about this in so many of our podcasts, oftentimes we try and put it on the other person, and as opposed to, again, looking inward and seeing what is it about my thinking, my beliefs, my actions that might have contributed to my distrust. And what would I do differently to build a different experience around that or to build that trust? So yeah, I do think it's foundational. I do, especially when you're building teams. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember one of the distinctions that was made in the book that they were talking about. It wasn't the trust they're talking about is not trusting that I trust that you're going to go to the grocery store. I trust that it's not that trust. It's trusting about the intention of someone, right? The intention behind. And so I want to pull in another one that I know is a little bit longer. Trust is knowing that when a team member does push you, they're doing it because they care about the team. And that's the kind of trust we're talking about. It's like in order to have effective teams, in order to arrive at the best decisions, it's important that people feel free to share their perspectives in the situation. And they're going to be engaging in conflict. And it doesn't mean that you're trying to harm the other person or cut them off at the knees, but it's that they've got a perspective, and what the goal of the team is matters. And the trust is there to know that you can engage in that and it doesn't forever damage the relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not about your opinion versus their opinion. It's about hearing all the opinions and then forming a decision around what's best for whatever the thing is that you're talking about, right? And when you were talking about that, what was coming to mind, and one of the doctors we used to work with at Sutter, he used to say, you have to be in the mindset that people have good intentions. Mm-hmm. You have to trust that people have good intentions, come from a place of kindness or come from a place of they have perspectives, they have knowledge that you may not have. Mm-hmm. And so be open to hearing that. Trust that whatever they're going to say is for the greater good and not a personal attack on your beliefs or what your perspective is. And I've always loved when he talked about that, because it just it resonated with me. It just gets you in the right mindset of trusting others.
My brain went a couple places, and one of them is connected because it's about when you said assume the best intent. Mm-hmm. The other is that I go back to crucial conversations, right? Yeah. Because if we're not in that space, so let's say that you've got this thing that someone disagrees with you, and you don't have trust in the relationship or across the team, and all of a sudden your brain can go to this place of, there they go again. They're always disagreeing with me. They never agree. They don't like me. They're whatever it may be, right? And so it's important that when trust is established, but well, I'll back up. It's important to be aware of the stories, because those are the stories we could be telling ourselves. And I find that if you don't have trust, those stories are just front and center. I mean, they're the thing that are going to step in and get in the way. So figure that out and manage those stories, because the alignment of the team is so important, and the ability to collaborate is so important. But if you don't have trust, you're building on a foundation of sand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not, and it's scary to step in and start trusting someone with your feelings or who you are or your opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is, you have to dissect it, just like everything we've talked about, right? So if you're feeling that you don't trust someone, break it down. And we had talked about this offline around this trust tree, if you will. And you know me, I'm big into stratifying information and trying to get down to like the root cause. And this trust tree was one of the ways that did it for me, because trust is kind of like communication. It's just such a broad word that it encompasses so much, right? And so breaking it down, and we've been talking about intent, but that's part of their character. So if the two pieces of trust are character and competence, under the character one, there's the intent, which is all about, does the person have a, caring? Are you caring? The transparency, the openness. And then there's also integrity. Are you questioning that person's honesty and their fairness or their authenticity, versus the competence side, which is really looking at their capabilities and their performance, the results, their credibility, their, that side of it. But, understanding that and being able to pinpoint where you're struggling with in the trust, I think can help with building stronger teams around trust.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I went back to in the book, one of the things that they did, the activity, it was a fable story based on real stuff and real concepts. But one of the things they did was had the team share this exercise of, they answered like 5 questions around their childhood upbringing. And they were innocent enough questions, like, what was your biggest struggle or biggest accomplishment as a child? How many siblings did you have? That kind of thing. But what it did, when you're talking about building trust is about getting to know people too. So it took that team from this, I know you as the title that you hold and the job that you do here and now, took it to another level of, I now have some insight into who you are as a person. And so I think that when I look at what can you do to start building trust, right? Part of that is putting the wall down and letting people see a little bit more about you than just the title that you hold.
That's right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I know you've done many exercises around, getting to know people. My favorite is the shield exercise, where you kind of say, here's who I was in the past, and you provide pictures and things like that might describe you in your past. Here's who I am in the present, and then here's who I aspire to be for the future, or who I look forward to being in the future.
There was, so funny you remind me of that. There was another one that we did, and I think it was one of the strategy things with one of the hospital leadership teams. And you paired off and you got to know each other just in those pairs. And the one person described, what about themselves, the family they had, where they like to go on vacation, favorite whatevers, And then the other person listened and actually drew a picture that depicted what that person had described. And so then the person that drew the picture about that person went in front of the room and they introduced their partner to the rest of the team. And what was interesting is that it was a team that had worked together for a while, but they didn't know this other stuff. So, and it was just, I think it was a cool thing. And so when we talk about trust, it's not just trust and capabilities, right? It's trust in the other person as a person. And part of it is, I'm going to go back to Brene Brown, it's being vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, it's letting the shield down, the wall down, so that people can see more than just what you show up to work with. And so you're right, there's so many different activities that you can do, and it doesn't take long, but then you can start getting your team to start experiencing each other a little bit differently, because we are so much more than the title that we hold.
Yes. So true.
Anyway, I've enjoyed this. There's so much more. I recommend the book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Super quick read. And the upside for me, it is available on Audible, even though I'm not promoting it. I don't get paid for that. But for me, I love the fact that I can listen to something and be doing something else as well. So anyway, Roko, what do you want people to walk away with?
I think it was at the very beginning, which is what you said around it being foundational. If you're having, connection issues with your team, or your team is struggling with being collaborative, trust is probably one of those things that is an issue for them. And spend time like doing some of those exercises, getting to know each other beyond their role, understanding their values, and helping to build that understanding around intent. And
the thing for me, what came to mind when you were when I was thinking about walking away with, is there's different situations, right? You have teams that are newer that just came together, and you have teams that have been together for a while. And so I think the thing for me is, if you fall in the latter group and you've got a team that's been together for a while, and maybe the relationship is less than ideal, don't lose hope. Take a look, unpack some of that stuff, have a look at it, and trust may be the foundational issue that you're missing. You've got a lack of it, but do some work around that, because it's not too late.
Right.
It's not too late. So I think that's, for me, the encouragement. So thank you. I do enjoy hanging out with you.
I do too.
So this has been,
that is.
Yeah. So this has been Leadership Soundbites with RokoM Michele. Please like, share, subscribe, share your topics, or great books that you've read that we can pull stuff in. And until next time, thank you.
Bye.